The television studio lights blaze hot as Kellyanne Conway sat across from Jasmine Crockett, her face already flushed with anger before the cameras even started rolling. In the next half-minute, what unfolded would capture the nation's attention, showing the stark difference between rage and composure under pressure. Conway, the seasoned White House counselor known for her fiery exchanges, had arrived ready for battle. Crockett, the young congresswoman from Texas, sat calmly in her navy blue blazer, hands folded, unaware she was moments away from becoming the most talked-about politician in America. With sharp gestures and her blonde hair whipping as she leaned forward, Conway sneered, "You think you just waltz in here and lecture me about politics? You're nothing but a freshman politician who doesn't know her place." What followed, however, stunned the studio. Crockett's calm devastatingly affected a response which spread online within hours, turning her into a viral sensation overnight. Before diving into that clash, it's important to understand who these two women are and why their confrontation mattered. At 57, Kellyanne Conway was a veteran of Washington politics, the former campaign manager who steered Donald Trump to his 2016 victory and later served as White House counselor. She built her reputation on sharp rebuttals, unflinching defiance, and her ability to withstand hostile interviews with a sharp tongue and unyielding confidence. Dressed in a crisp white blazer over a black top, hair perfectly styled and eyes burning with intensity, Conway carried years of political survival into that studio, armed with notes, talking points, and the certainty she could dominate any opponent. But opposite her sat Jasmine Crockett, representing a new political generation at just 42. A former public defender and civil rights attorney, Crockett rose by defending those without a voice, ultimately winning her congressional seat by connecting with voters who felt abandoned. Unlike Conway, she didn't prepare with binders of attack strategies. She relied on something more powerful, the ability to stay calm, speak truth, and connect with ordinary people. Her navy blazer and simple appearance projected authority without pretension. Crockett embodied professionalism, confidence, and the strength of unshakable composure. This wasn't just a debate over voting rights. It was a symbolic clash between two philosophies of political combat, the old-school belief in aggression and dominance versus a new era of calm, truth-driven resolve. The host tried to ease into the discussion with softball questions, but Conway had no patience for subtlety. She launched her attack immediately. This so-called voting rights bill is nothing but a federal takeover of elections designed to help Democrats steal votes. And I'm tired of freshman politicians like Miss Crockett here pretending they understand the complexities of election law. Crockett simply smiled, hands folded, and replied with a steady voice, "Thank you, Kellyanne. I appreciate you sharing your perspective." The calmness enraged Conway further. Her face reddened, her voice cracked, and she leaned closer, spitting out, "Don't patronize me, Congresswoman. I was managing presidential campaigns when you were still in law school. I know what voter fraud looks like, and this bill makes it easier." Without losing her poise, Crockett asked, "I'd love to hear about specific examples of the voter fraud you're concerned about. What evidence are you referencing?" The question knocked Conway off her rhythm. She was accustomed to shouting matches where her opponents matched her aggression. Instead, Crockett's composure forced her into an uncomfortable position. "The evidence is everywhere." Conway snapped, her pitch rising. "Dead people voting. Illegal immigrants voting. Ballot harvesting in swing states. But politicians like you refuse to acknowledge it." Behind the cameras, producers exchanged looks while the sound engineer winced at Conway's rising volume. This was raw television, unfiltered, and already spreading across social media in real time. Viewers tweeted comments like, "Is Conway okay?" And Crockett is handling this like a boss. Even as the host tried to steer the conversation back to policy specifics, Conway cut him off with sharp, "No. I'm tired of being interrupted. I'm tired of being lectured by people who don't know what they're talking about. This woman," she pointed furiously at Crockett, "has been in Congress for what, 2 years? And she thinks she can school me about politics." Still, Crockett remained unshaken. She sipped her water, glanced at her notes, and held the same pleasant expression. When Conway finally paused, Crockett leaned in slightly and spoke in the same steady tone. "I understand you're passionate about this issue, Kellyanne. Passion is important in politics. But I think our viewers would benefit from discussing actual facts rather than talking points at in that moment. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. Conway's fury burned hot and loud, but Crockett's quiet, factual confidence carried more weight. America was watching, and within hours, clips of the exchange would flood every corner of the internet, cementing Jasmine Crockett's rise as a new kind of political force. One who proved that sometimes the calmest voice in a room speaks the loudest. That Conway's face shifted from red to nearly purple as her anger boiled over. Facts? You want to talk about facts? The fact is that you and your party are trying to destroy election integrity in this country. You're trying to make it impossible for states to verify that voters are who they say they are. Jasmine Crockett, calm as ever, leaned slightly forward and asked in her steady voice, "Which specific provision of the bill are you referring to? I have the legislation right here if you'd like to discuss the actual language." Conway's hand slammed against the desk with a sharp crack. "Don't play games with me. You know exactly what I'm talking about. This bill eliminates voter ID requirements, allows ballot harvesting, and prevents states from cleaning up their voter rolls. It's a recipe for chaos." Crockett nodded thoughtfully, unbothered. "I appreciate you raising those concerns, but the bill doesn't eliminate voter ID. In fact, it strengthens voter ID by making sure all Americans have access to free identification. It doesn't remove the requirement. It makes it more accessible. Would you like me to show you the section?" Now visibly shaking with rage, Conway spat back. "Stop trying to manipulate the facts. I know what this bill says. I've read it cover to cover, and I know what your real agenda is." Crockett's tone remained curious and calm. "What do you believe my agenda is?" Conway screamed so loudly that the sound engineers winced. "Your agenda is to make it easier for Democrats to cheat, to flood the system with illegal votes so you can stay in power." The studio went completely silent, except for Conway's heavy breathing. Even Conway herself seemed to realize she had crossed a line, accusing a sitting congresswoman of conspiracy on live television. Crockett let the silence stretch before speaking softly. "Kellyanne, I took an oath to defend the Constitution. Every vote I cast and every bill I support is guided by that oath and my commitment to the people who elected me. I believe democracy is stronger when more eligible Americans can participate in it." Conway tried to recover, but her words faltered. That's exactly the kind of political speak I'm talking about. You say one thing, but you mean another." Crockett tilted her head slightly, still calm. "What do you think I mean?" Conway's mouth opened and closed, searching for words that wouldn't come. She had built her attack on the assumption that Crockett would fight fire with fire, but every measured response made Conway appear more unhinged. The host tried to redirect the state election laws, but Conway snapped at him. "I don't need help. I can handle this myself." She turned back to Crockett, pointing a trembling finger. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think staying calm and using your lawyer voice means you're winning." Crockett answered without hesitation. "I don't think of this as something to win or lose, Kellyanne. I think of it as an opportunity to have a conversation about how to make democracy work better for everyone. Why now?" Conway's carefully styled hair was messy from her animated gestures, her voice hoarse from shouting, and her face flushed with exhaustion. Security staff edged closer, not because they expected violence, but because her emotional state was visibly unstable. The medical consultant glanced at her equipment, wondering if she might be needed. But instead of calming down, Conway escalated. "You know what your problem is?" she shouted. "You think being calm makes you right. You think because you don't raise your voice, people will think you're the adult in the room. But I see right through you. You're manipulating people, pretending to be reasonable while you push legislation that will destroy democracy." The host tried to redirect again, but Conway cut him off, snapping, "Don't talk to me about the Constitution. I defended it for 4 years in the White House." She spun back to Crockett, trembling with rage. "The Constitution doesn't say we should make voting so easy that fraud is inevitable. It doesn't say we should ignore common sense security." Crockett nodded slowly. "You're right, Kellyanne. The Constitution doesn't say those things. What it does say, in the 14th and 15th Amendments, is that all citizens have the right to vote and that this right cannot be denied or abridged. The real question is how we balance security with access. Conway slammed both hands on the desk, shouting, "Stop being so reasonable. Stop acting like you're above this. I know who you really are." The studio froze in disbelief. Kellyanne Conway had just screamed at someone for being reasonable. Crockett's response was softer than ever, almost compassionate. "Kellyanne, I can see you're upset, and I understand these issues matter to you. They matter to me too. But we can disagree about policy without questioning each other's character or motives." For the first time, Conway fell silent, her rage collapsing into stunned disbelief. Crockett leaned forward slightly. "You spent a lot of time telling me what you think I believe, but you haven't asked me what I actually believe. Let me tell you, I support this bill because I've seen what happens when people can't vote. As a public defender, I saw clients disenfranchised by the justice system. I saw elderly people unable to get IDs. I saw working parents unable to take time off to vote. I don't support this bill to make Democrats win. I support it so democracy can win." For the first time, Conway's voice dropped to a whisper. That's not what this bill does." Crockett replied gently, "Then help me understand what you think it does. Not my motives, not talking points. Specific provisions." Conway shuffled her notes, visibly rattled, searching for something to back her arguments. After a long, uncomfortable silence, she finally muttered, The provision about voter roll maintenance. States need to clean their rolls." Crockett nodded. "I agree, and the bill doesn't prevent that. It just requires states to use reliable data and give notice before removing voters. Would you support that?" Conway blinked, struggling. "Well, notice is important, but the timeline could allow dead voters to stay on rolls." Crockett flipped open her copy of the bill. "Actually, it requires immediate removal upon proof of death. The notice is only for address changes. Would you like to see the section?" Conway glanced at the pages, then back at Crockett. For the first time, the fight drained from her face. I may have misunderstood that provision," she whispered. The admission landed like a confession, rare and shocking from a woman who had built a career on never admitting fault. Crockett's voice stayed calm, even gentle. "It's easy to misunderstand complex legislation, especially when we rely on summaries instead of the actual text. That's why I always try to read bills myself before forming opinions." Conway nodded faintly, looking deflated. "And that's why it's important," Crockett continued, "that we have these conversations based on facts, not assumptions about each other's motives. Because when we assume people we disagree with are evil or corrupt, we stop listening. And democracy can't work without listening." The host, who had sat in stunned silence for much of the exchange, finally spoke. "Congresswoman Crockett, that's a powerful point about civil discourse." Conway, eyes downcast, finally whispered, I apologize if I got too heated. These issues are important to me." Crockett smiled warmly. "They're important to me too. And that's why we should discuss them respectfully." The cameras captured every second. Conway's fiery meltdown, her reluctant admission of error, and her quiet apology. But more importantly, they immortalized Crockett's masterclass in composure. Calm, factual, and devastatingly effective, within minutes of the broadcast ending. Clips went viral. Conway's screaming "Stop being so reasonable" became an instant meme. Yet it was Crockett's response that stole the spotlight. A civil rights attorney tweeted, "This is what leadership looks like in 2024. Calm, factual, focus on solving problems instead of creating drama." Even conservative commentators struggled to defend Conway's performance, with one Republican strategist remarking, "I've known Kellyanne for years. This wasn't her best work, to be why at the end of the day, Jasmine Crockett wasn't just trending. She was solidified as a rising force in American politics. What was meant to be an ambush had instead become a viral moment of grace under fire, proving that sometimes the strongest voice in a room is the calmest one." Crockett handled the exchange masterfully. She stayed calm, stuck to the facts, and made her point without ever raising her voice. That, many argued, is true political skill. The internet quickly did what it does best, turning Conway's meltdown into comedy gold. Memes flooded social media, showing Conway screaming with captions like, when someone asked you to cite your sources, while side-by-side photos highlighted her face getting progressively redder throughout the segment, like a political mood ring. Creative users even added the famous "this is fine" dog meme text over Crockett's calm expression, perfectly capturing her unflappable demeanor amid Conway's chaos. One of the most popular formats featured Conway pointing and screaming with relatable everyday captions like, "when a restaurant is out of your favorite menu item," or "when Netflix cancels your favorite show mid-season." But what made this meme explosion unique was that the jokes weren't overly mean-spirited toward Conway. Instead, many celebrated Crockett's composure rather than simply mocking her opponent's loss of control. The most shared meme featured Crockett maintaining her pleasant expression alongside the caption, "How to win an argument without raising your voice." News outlets, meanwhile, struggled to find precedent for what they had just witnessed. Political debates usually follow predictable patterns. Two people interrupting each other, making partisan points, and talking past one another. But this was different. A major newspaper headline declared, "Congresswoman's calm response to screaming opponent goes viral, sparks discussion about political discourse." The article noted that Crockett had managed to turn what looked like an ambush into a teachable moment about how democracy should work. Cable news shows spent hours analyzing the exchange. Political scientists were brought on to discuss the Crockett method, responding to aggression with calm facts rather than matching hostility. Even late-night comedy shows joined in, but their jokes focused more on Conway's over-the-top performance than on mocking either participant. One host quipped, "Kellyanne Conway literally yelled at someone for being too reasonable. That's like getting angry at someone for being too polite or too prepared. What's next? Stop being so competent." Conway tried to control the damage through social media. She posted a statement saying, "Had a spirited discussion about voting rights today. Sometimes passion comes through as intensity, but the issues are too important for politeness." But her followers weren't buying it. The replies were brutal. "Kellyanne, yelling at someone for being reasonable isn't passion. It's poor behavior. She stayed calm while you lost control. That's not about politeness. That's about professionalism. Maybe try reading the actual bill next time before going on TV to attack it." Conway tried again with a longer post attempting to relitigate policy arguments, but by then it was too late. The narrative was already set. She had lost control, while her opponent remained composed and factual. For Jasmine Crockett, the viral moment was both an opportunity and a challenge. She gained millions of new followers overnight, but she also had to figure out how to use this attention constructively. Her response was perfectly on brand. She posted a short video message. "Thank you to everyone who watched today's discussion. This is exactly why we need to focus on facts and treat each other with respect. Even when we disagree, democracy works best when we listen to each other." The video spread quickly, with comments like, "This is the kind of leadership we need more of." Many praised Crockett for turning what could have been a shouting match into a lesson about how democracy should function, proof that a politician can be strong without being loud. The exchange didn't just capture American attention. It went global. International news outlets picked up the story as an example of American political discourse. A major European newspaper ran the headline, "American Political Debate, When Shouting Meets Silence." Commentators abroad used the clip to highlight different approaches to democratic debate. A Canadian political scientist said on television, "What we saw from Congresswoman Crockett represents a maturation of American political communication. The ability to remain calm under attack while still making substantive points is exactly what democratic institutions need." Subtitle versions of the clips appeared across languages, with international audiences praising Crockett's diplomatic skills while expressing concern over Conway's aggressive style. Back home, universities began incorporating the exchange into curricula. Political science professors use it as a case study in effective communication strategies, while psychology departments analyze it as an example of emotional regulation under stress. A prominent university even published a paper titled "The Crockett Method: Calm Authority as Political Strategy," breaking down exactly how she maintained control without ever raising her voice or resorting to personal attacks. Communication schools began teaching the Crockett technique for handling hostile questioning. They identified the key steps as acknowledge the emotion behind the attack, redirect a factual discussion, ask clarifying questions, and maintain a consistent tone regardless of the opponent's behavior. Business leaders and corporate trainers also saw immediate applications for Crockett's approach. HR departments used the clip in conflict resolution trainings, while executive coaching programs incorporated her techniques into their lessons on handling difficult board meetings and high-stakes negotiations. Several Fortune 500 companies even reported using the viral moment as a teaching tool for maintaining composure during stressful presentations. One CEO tweeted, "Every executive should watch how Jasmine Crockett handled this situation. This is masterclass leadership under pressure." Perhaps most significantly, the viral exchange revealed a generational divide in how Americans want their leaders to behave. Polling showed that voters under 40 overwhelmingly preferred Crockett's approach, while older voters were more divided. Younger viewers described Conway's behavior as embarrassing and unprofessional, while they called Crockett presidential and someone I could trust with important decisions. This generational split had immediate political implications. Democratic strategists noted that Crockett's performance could serve as a model for attracting younger voters disillusioned by traditional political combat. Republican strategists worried Conway's approach might alienate the very demographics they needed to win future elections. The moment's political impact was significant. Democratic fundraising spiked as donors rallied behind Crockett's performance. Progressive organizations widely shared the clip as an example of effective political communication. But the influence went beyond partisan politics. Educators began using the clip in civics classes as an example of constructive discourse, while communication experts pointed to Crockett's calm questioning and fact-based rebuttals as a refreshing contrast to typical political shouting matches. Privately, Republicans were concerned. Conway had been one of their most trusted communicators. If she could be so thoroughly outmaneuvered by calm questioning and basic facts, what did that mean for the party's broader communication strategy? The viral success of Crockett's response highlighted something deeper about where American political discourse stood in 2024. People were tired of screaming matches. They were hungry for leaders who could disagree without being disagreeable, who could stand firm without being mean. Social media analytics confirmed it. Crockett's calm clips were shared far more than Conway's outbursts, with comments consistently praising Crockett's class and professionalism while expressing embarrassment over Conway's behavior. The incident also sparked broader conversations about women in politics and leadership styles. Conway and Crockett represented two starkly different approaches to wielding political power, and the public's response showed a clear preference for Crockett's. More importantly, the exchange became a teachable moment about political discourse itself. Millions of Americans watched Crockett demonstrate that you can be strong without being loud, that you can win arguments with facts rather than volume, and that respect does not equal weakness. The clip spread into high school government classrooms, corporate training programs, and graduate seminars on political communication. Conway's career wasn't destroyed, but it took a hit. She remained a sought-after commentator, though bookers became more cautious about pairing her with opponents who might use Crockett's calm, fact-based style. Crockett, on the other hand, saw her national profile skyrocket. She was invited to major events, featured on top news programs, and hailed as a voice for a new generation of leaders who believe democracy works best when people actually listen. The Kellyanne Conway Jasmine Crockett exchange became more than a viral moment. It became a case study in how political communication could work differently. Instead of two people yelling past one another, viewers saw one person attack while the other calmly listened and responded, and the listener came out on top. The message was clear. In a political environment defined by division and anger, there is still power in being reasonable, strength in staying calm, and victory in treating opponents with respect while standing firm on principle. The viral success of Crockett's approach suggested something hopeful. Maybe Americans are ready for a different kind of political discourse. One where the goal is understanding rather than destruction, where strength is measured by composure instead of volume, and where winning means finding solutions rather than scoring points. So, what do you think about this incredible showdown? Did Jasmine Crockett handle it perfectly, or would you have responded differently to Conway's attacks? Drop your thoughts in the comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more political breakdowns that show how democracy really works behind the scenes. Hit that notification bell so you never miss the moments that define American politics. Which approach do you prefer? Conway's aggressive confrontation or Crockett's calm professionalism? Let us know. And share this video with anyone who needs to see what real political leadership looks like.